Peter Block at TCT 2015 for On the Scene, and this tall person sitting next to me is, or standing next to me, I should say, is Mark Lattke from Stanford. Mark and I have just been talking. He's presented the platform trial, or actually the data analysis. Mark, tell me what platform is. It has to do with FFR done by CT. I do know that.
Yes. Well, you know, CT angiography is very good at picking up anatomic lesions, but it doesn't tell you whether they're obstructing flow. And FFRCT is supposed to look at that and use computational fluid dynamics to figure out whether the lesions are obstructive or not, and correlates well with measured FFR in the coronaries. And so the platform study was designed to say, what is the clinical impact of doing this? Main results were presented at European Society of Cardiology meetings last summer and showed that the rate of invasive angiography that showed no obstructive lesions was down considerably. It went from 73% to 12% in people who are scheduled for an angiogram. And so our task was to look at the economic and quality of life impacts of that. And to cut to the chase, I mean, it saves money whenever you prevent doing invasive procedures, and it saved about 30%.
Well, let me just interrupt for a second. It saves money. It saves money how?
It saves money because you're doing fewer invasive angiographies, and there's also a little evidence that maybe it's downgrading some of the coronary revascularization, maybe from a CABG to a PCI, by seeing that functionally, you know, there's less arteries that are obstructive, and maybe it's doable with PCI. Okay,
so let's go over the trial a little bit more carefully for, you know, the sort of clinical takeaway here, because seriously we have to think about, you know, who got into this, what kind of patients, either stable angina patients or patients that had acute coronary syndromes. What were they?
They were all stable outpatients in Europe. There were 11 centers in Europe. They were scheduled for invasive angiography based on prior testing and history. And there was a non-invasive group as well. But the invasive group was scheduled for angiography, and it was a design where we first looked at people who had angiography as usual, and then we did a consecutive series of people who, instead of the angiogram, got a CT angiogram. And what we found is that very few of them went on to get an invasive angiogram when that was shown to be normal, either by the CTA or non-obstructive based on the FFR.
Okay, so a trial that really does have a fair amount of clinical importance, I think, going forward, FFRCT being relatively non-invasive, not necessarily high in radiation, and from your data analysis seems to make a lot of economic difference in saving money. Probably looking forward, what would you say the clinician should take away from this trial?
I think the biggest thing is that, you know, the anatomic data from the CTA complemented by the physiologic functional data from an FFRCT can be very helpful in keeping people out of the cath lab who don't really need to be there, focusing us on the people who do need to be there.
Thank you, Mark.